What is up, everybody? I'm KD, and welcome to my channel. So today we're going to be continuing our Snowfall series and going on talking about Franklin's relationship with his father, Alton Saint, who's played by Kevin Carroll. So I thought that this was a really interesting dynamic to include in the show because we don't usually see the father-son or even, father-child relationship kind of evolve the way that we see it here, especially for during that time period, like in the 80s during the crack epidemic and when all of this stuff was happening. We usually see the negative parts of that relationship, at least, because the show is pretty, adult. So Alton Saint, the character, is an ex-Black Panther who is now, actually at the time we meet him in the first episode, he's homeless. We actually see him again at the end, very, very last scene of the first episode. He's walking down the street with his cans, and Aunt Louie nudges Franklin to speak to him. Franklin's like, nah, And we see as an audience right off rip that he has a bad relationship with his dad. Like, he resents his dad. And again, this was really interesting because not only does he have a bad relationship, further down the line, we see that they did have a relationship. We even see a scene of Franklin at a Black Panther meeting with his dad when he's a kid. So we know that relationship obviously went through some turmoil as Alton went to the bottle to deal with, all the issues that happened after the Black Panthers were dismantled, which would have been in 1982. So a year before Snowfall jumps off. And we really see this tug of war relationship between Franklin and Alton, especially throughout the first season. Again, the first time we see Alton, they're static. Franklin doesn't even want to speak to him. And then we get to the third episode, I believe it was episode 3, where Franklin quit the game for a brief moment at least. But during his brief stint of quitting the game, he went looking for his father. And he ended up bailing him out of jail with some of the money that he earned. And before Alton had an opportunity while they're at the jailhouse, he's coming out, Franklin is about to leave. Well, he actually ends up leaving before Alton had an opportunity to thank him or say anything to him because he saw that his son bailed him out. So we fast forward a little bit to the 4th of July barbecue. Alton pops up. Sissy scolds Alton. She's telling him off, telling him to leave. Nobody wants you here. And it takes Franklin to come outside and just kind of keep the peace and say, like, no, it's okay if he stays. And Alton let it be known that Franklin is the one who bailed him out of jail. So Sissy stands down and Alton pulls Franklin over to the side. And actually, he knows that his son is involved in the street life, and he tries to warn him to get out if he can because nothing good is gonna come of this. But Franklin, of course, is not trying to hear fatherly advice from his dad, who he later ended up calling a deadbeat. And later on in the night, the police show up. And you know how that goes when the police come and shut the party down. Franklin ends up coming outside. He's upset with the police. And next thing you know, he's in a full Nelson or on the ground, getting arrested by the police. Franklin looks up and sees Alton walking away. And us as an audience, we see Alton looking at his son being harassed essentially by the police. And he froze. He doesn't do anything when it comes to the police. He's traumatized by his situation or his dealings with the Black Panthers and how that. And we see Alton looking over at Franklin and feeling hopeless and not being able to do anything. He takes the easy way out. He turns, he walks away. This solidifies Franklin's disdain for his father. So after getting the first glimpse of Alton's character as this guide. He's supposed to be this compass, like for Franklin and for Sissy. So we get a glimpse of that in the first season with Alton warning Franklin that you might want to get out of this game before you get in too deep, because there's nothing to be played with out here in these streets. We go over to season 2 and things get a little deeper. Alton, we see the story told actually through his eyes. We follow him on his journey more through homelessness, shuffling around from place to place. It becomes a really big arc here in the beginning of the season. We see Alton, believe this is episode 2 or 3 of the second season. We see Alton get brutalized and beat into a coma by the police, clearing out some space for the Olympic Games or something like that during the time, clearing out the homeless. Alton doesn't want to go. He wants to stand his ground. He doesn't want to leave. He sticks out his chest and he gets beat into a coma. So through his recovery, he ends up obviously in the hospital. Judging by the timeline, it appears that he would have been in maybe the Vietnam War or World War II, because the Black Panthers would have started in 1966. And the VA had his wife, his next of kin, Sissy's information. A social worker contacts Sissy. You're the only one who can help him. And because he is in a coma and recovering from that, he's subsequently detoxing from his alcoholism as well. So the social worker's like, it's gonna be bad. He's gonna need somebody. If we release him and he's out on the streets, he could die. So Sissy's put in a corner, between a rock and a hard place, and she decides to take Alton in. She gets him home, gets him to Franklin's room. There's some days or weeks that pass at this point. He slowly comes out of the coma, and on his road to recovery and without the influence of alcohol, Alton almost immediately steps in to assist Sissy with the bills. That was the main thing. Sissy could possibly lose the house, and this takes him to going to reconnect again with Franklin, who the last time they saw each other, it was Alton's back walking away from Franklin as he was getting brutalized or as he was getting harassed by the police. So Alton approaches Franklin one day, asking him to help out a little bit. He, again, knows Franklin is selling, and his tune is different from in the first season where he's kind of like, you know what, you need to step out of this. At this point, Alton kind of accepts the fact that his son is in the underworld, and he's like, look, I know you're doing this, but the least you could do is help your mom because she's about to lose the house. Franklin gives his dad the cold shoulder. He doesn't want to hear any of this. Of course, he's over it, and he shoos Alton away. Word gets back to Sissy via Franklin that Alton came around asking for money. He's still upset from the last time that they had their encounter together, and Sissy's like, calm down, it's different. So Sissy is impressed, though, by Alton's advances or his attempt to get Franklin to step in a little bit, and they kind of reconcile. And the reconciliation is, again, one of my favorite parts about this dynamic and this relationship, and inserting Alton into the story and keeping him there in this way, because we hardly ever see the reconciliation between two jaded parents who, fall out of love or go through things and the child is upset. We usually just see the mother's point of view or the child's point of view, but we never see if that relationship ever comes back together. Not only do we see Sissy and Alton reconcile and come back together, but this also seeps into how Franklin is looking at his dad. Because the social worker, she comes back into play. She finds Franklin and tries to get him to help her find Alton, because he needs to sign some papers that will end up keeping him out of jail via what happened when he got put into a coma. So Franklin turns down her request initially, like, no, you can't get my help with that. He's still upset. He still doesn't want anything to do with his dad at this point. He tried and it didn't work. So time passes and Franklin eventually does link back up with the social worker. So Franklin knew exactly where to find him, and he ends up helping the social worker at the end locate Alton. And this was kind of like, that white flag moment. And it wasn't a, hug moment or anything like that, but it was clear that he had some type of heart left for his dad. And as long as he was there helping his mother, Franklin just urged him, really kind of threatened him to make sure he didn't drop the ball. So moving into season 3 in this new season 4 that's premiering on February 24th, we'll start to see more of how Alton really becomes essential as Franklin navigates like the FBI and the police from his standpoint as an ex-Black Panther, ex-military, and we'll dig more into that in part 2 of this examining or breakdown of Franklin's relationship with his dad, Alton. So make sure that you guys like this video if you like anything here. Comment down below if I missed anything or if maybe you saw some of the things that were interested in this storyline as much as I was. And don't forget to subscribe to this channel so you don't miss out on any of my new uploads or interesting content. And I'll check you guys on the next one. Peace.